Rhaenyra's hidden betrayal. Listen, we need to talk about the single most catastrophic lie in Targaryen history. And no, I'm not talking about Aegon the Conqueror telling his sisters that matching dragon-riding family therapy sessions would be fun. I am talking about Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen standing in front of the entire Seven Kingdoms, holding up 3 brown-haired boys, and saying with a straight face, "Yep, these are definitely Rhaenyra Valerian's kids." Spoiler alert, they absolutely were not. Before we dive into this royal mess, do me a favor. Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because we are about to unpack some serious Westerosi tea. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next on Westeros' throne. Now, let us set the stage. Rhaenyra Targaryen, heir to the Iron Throne, married to Rhaenyra Valerian, a match made in political heaven. The Valerians get closer to the throne. The Targaryens get the backing of the richest house in the realm and the largest fleet in Westeros. Everybody wins, right? Wrong. Because there is one tiny little problem. Rhaenyra Valerian had about as much interest in fathering children with Rhaenyra as a maester has in attending a Dothraki wedding. The man preferred the company of other men, and honestly, good for him. Live your truth, Rhaenyra. But this created what we might call a succession crisis of epic proportions. So what does Rhaenyra do? Does she adopt? Does she have an honest conversation with the realm about alternative family structures? No. She decides to have 3 children with Harwin Strong, the commander of the City Watch, who coincidentally has the exact same dark hair and facial features as her 3 boys. And then she parades them around court claiming they're legitimate Valerians. The audacity is almost impressive. Here's where things get spicy. Everybody knew, and I mean everybody. Queen Alicent knew. Otto Hightower knew. Viserys knew but chose to ignore it because he loved his daughter more than he loved common sense. Even the servants were probably gossiping about it over their morning ale. The only people supposedly in the dark were the 3 boys themselves, at least initially. And anyone dumb enough to believe that silver-haired Rhaenyra Valerian and silver-haired Rhaenyra Targaryen could somehow produce children who looked like they belonged in the Stormlands. But let us talk about why Rhaenyra made this choice, because calling it just a lie does not do it justice. This was strategic deception on a nuclear level. First, Rhaenyra understood something fundamental about Westerosi politics. Legitimacy is everything. If she had openly acknowledged that her children were bastards, even strong bastards, she would have lost her claim to the Iron Throne faster than you could say bend the knee. The realm already had issues with a woman inheriting. Throwing bastards into the mix would have been like throwing wildfire on an already burning keep. Second, and this is crucial, Rhaenyra was trapped. She needed heirs. That is non-negotiable when you're trying to establish a dynasty. Rhaenyra could not or would not provide them. Divorce was not exactly an option in Westeros. This is not modern-day Westeros where you can just file some paperwork and split your dragon custody. She was stuck in a marriage that worked politically but not practically. So she did what many powerful people throughout history have done. She found a workaround and then gaslit everyone about it. Now, let us address the Harwin Strong situation, because this man deserves more credit than he gets. Harwin Breakbone Strong was not just some random knight Rhaenyra picked because he had nice hair. Though let us be honest, he did have great hair. He was the strongest knight in the Seven Kingdoms, the son of the Hand of the King, and by all accounts, genuinely loved Rhaenyra and his children. Their relationship was not just about producing heirs. There was real affection there. Which makes the whole situation even more tragic when you realize that Harwin and his father Lionel eventually died in a mysterious fire at Harrenhal, a fire that was almost certainly orchestrated by Larry Strong, Harwin's own brother, who was playing his own twisted Game of Thrones. But here's what makes Rhaenyra's lie so dangerous. It was not sustainable. You cannot build a dynasty on a foundation of obvious falsehoods and expect it to hold. Every time Jacaerys, Lucerys, or Joffrey walked into a room, they were walking proof of their mother's deception. The Greens, Alicent and her supporters, had ammunition for days. They could point to those boys and say, "Look, she's a liar. She broke her marriage vows. She's trying to seat bastards on the Iron Throne. Why should we trust her with the realm?" And you know what? They had a point. Not about whether Rhaenyra deserved the throne, That is a whole other debate, but about the fact that her lie created legitimate questions about succession. Because if Jace is not really a Valerian, does he have a claim to Driftmark? If he is not legitimate, can he inherit the Iron Throne after Rhaenyra? These are not small questions. These are the kinds of questions that start civil wars. Which, spoiler alert, is exactly what happened. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Viserys' role in all of this. King Viserys loved his daughter so much that he was willing to threaten people with losing their tongues if they questioned the legitimacy of his grandsons. That is some serious devotion right there. But here is the thing. By protecting Rhaenyra's lie, Viserys actually made everything worse. He taught the realm that truth did not matter, that might made right, and that if you had the king's favor, you could get away with anything. That is not exactly a recipe for stable governance. When your entire political system is based on do not question the obvious lie or the king will hurt you, you are building a house of cards in a hurricane. The real tragedy is that Rhaenyra's sons were actually good kids who would have made decent leaders. Jacaerys was brave, honorable, and politically savvy. Lucerys was young, but showed promise. But they were forever tainted by the circumstances of their birth. Not because there was anything actually wrong with them, but because their mother's lie made them vulnerabilities instead of strengths. Now, some people argue that Rhaenyra had no choice, that she was a victim of impossible circumstances. And look, there is some truth to that. Westerosi society did not exactly give women a lot of options. But let us not pretend Rhaenyra was some helpless damsel. She was a dragon-riding princess with enormous privilege and power. She made calculated choices, and those choices had consequences. Could she have made different choices? Absolutely. Could she have been more honest, perhaps found a way to legitimize her children openly, or chosen a different path entirely? Maybe. But she chose deception, and that choice set in motion events that would lead to one of the bloodiest conflicts in Westerosi history. So why did Rhaenyra lie? Because she was desperate, because she was trapped, because she thought she could get away with it, because she loved her children and wanted to protect them, because she wanted the throne and knew bastards would never be accepted, because she was human, flawed, and making impossible choices in an impossible situation. But understanding why she lied does not change the fact that the lie destroyed her family, her dynasty, and nearly ended the Targaryen line forever. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one.